My son locked me in the guest room and moved his wife into my bedroom. So I sold the whole damn house. My son said it was just temporary, that I'd be more comfortable in the guest room. Then one day, I came home and found my clothes packed, my bedroom locked, and his wife sleeping in my bed like she'd earned it. But what they didn't know, I still owned the whole house. And while they were sipping wine and calling me a burden, I was planning the kind of revenge that doesn't knock. It signs paperwork. Before I begin my story, I just want to say thank you for listening to me pour my heart out. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I love hearing from you. And if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. It helps me more than you know. Now, let me tell you what really happened. I didn't mind giving up space. I'd done it my whole life. I gave up space in my garage so Michael could have room for his car projects. Gave up space in my savings account so he could get a truck for work. Gave up space in my marriage, my time, my energy, all to make sure my boy had what he needed. So when Michael and his new wife Jessica needed a few weeks to stay after they got married, I didn't hesitate. Of course they could move in. The house was big enough. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. I figured I'd sleep in my room, they'd take the guest room, and we'd share meals like family again. But Jessica had other ideas. From day one, she acted like she was doing me the favor. The way she walked in, designer purse on her shoulder, didn't even call me dad like Michael always encouraged people to do. Just George, like I was a roommate in her apartment. That first night, she complained about the mattress in the guest room. "It's too firm," she said. "It's hurting my back." Michael gave me a look across the dinner table. I could already see it coming. "Dad," he said, "what if Jessica and I use the master for now? You're getting older anyway. You don't need all that space." I blinked. "Michael, your mother and I slept in that room for 35 years. "I know, Dad, but Jessica's got her back issues." "She's only 32. "She's 32, I said. "Her back will be fine." Jessica pouted like a teenager. Michael rubbed her shoulder. That night, I went to bed in the master anyway. It was still my room, my bed, my memories. But the next afternoon when I came back from the hardware store, my things were packed into boxes and stacked outside the door. The door was locked. I stood there in that hallway, staring at my own life in cardboard. Michael came out of the kitchen like nothing had happened. "Oh yeah, we moved some stuff to give you more space. We figured it'd be easier this way. You can use the guest room without asking. Come on, don't make this a big thing." Jessica appeared behind him wearing my late wife's bathrobe like it was hers. She had a face mask on and a mug that said, "Boss Lady." She smirked at me. That night I slept in the guest room on a firm mattress with one outlet that didn't work and a broken window latch. The room was cold and drafty. My joints ached. I didn't say anything because I was raised to believe that fathers endure, but endurance has a limit. The next day, Jessica had her friends over for brunch. I wasn't invited. I heard them laughing about how some old people don't know when to step back. Later, I found my wedding portrait face down in the hallway closet. My military medals tossed in a shoe box under cleaning supplies. My photo albums pushed aside for Jessica's makeup collection. Michael avoided eye contact. I heard him whisper to her one night, "Don't worry, he's quiet. He'll adjust." Adjust. This was my house. I didn't just pay for it. I built the foundation of it with my back and my sweat. When the furnace died in '92, it was me down there with a wrench. When Michael needed braces, I skipped vacation that year. When the bank threatened foreclosure, I picked up a second job driving truck on weekends. And now I was being shuffled like old furniture by my only child. Then it got worse. They put a new lock on the master bedroom door, not just the turn knob, but a keypad. I asked for the code. Michael said, "It's just for privacy, you know." Boundaries. Boundaries in my house. Come on, it's still your house. We're just building a future here. And I was just the past. They never said it out loud, but every sigh, every shrug, every closed door screamed it. That weekend, I tried to make Sunday dinner. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans. Michael's favorites. Jessica walked in halfway through and said, "Oh, we're doing takeout tonight. My stomach's too sensitive for all this heavy food." Michael nodded along. They ate Thai food in the master bedroom, my bedroom. I ate alone at the dining table I bought with my first overtime check. No blessing. No thank you. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes you remember things. Like whose name is still on the deed. Like which drawer still holds the business card for Robert Hayes, my lawyer since 1998. Like the fact that I might be old, but I'm not done. They thought I was too quiet to fight. They thought being tired meant I was weak. They thought calling me dad while pushing me into the guest room was enough to keep me from reclaiming what's mine. But the thing about guests is they leave. And I was about to show them how. They took my room, but I still had the house. And I was ready to sell it from under their feet. I stopped cooking. That was the first change. Michael didn't notice. Jessica did. She made a comment about how, I guess retirement finally kicked in, and laughed like I wasn't standing 3 feet away. I let her laugh. Let her think I'd given up. But I wasn't resting. I was watching. They filled my house with noise. Jessica invited her sisters over nearly every weekend. Michael let their friends crash on the living room couch. I started finding makeup stains in my sink, nail polish on the kitchen table, a spilled drink on the arm of my late wife's favorite chair. I asked Jessica to be careful. She said, "If it bothers you, maybe don't sit there." It was the same chair where I held Michael when he had nightmares. The same one where his mother read him bedtime stories in a voice so soft it made the house feel like home. I cleaned it with a damp cloth that night. The stain didn't come out. I didn't try again. The worst part wasn't the mess. It wasn't even the way they moved through the house like they'd built it themselves. It was the way they erased me without ever raising their voices. Jessica turned our dining room into a content corner for her Instagram account. Ring light, white backdrop, my late wife's china cabinet pushed into the corner. "Vintage doesn't get engagement," she said. One day, I came back from the doctor's office and found all my tools boxed up and labeled "garage sale." I stood there for a minute just staring at the boxes. Jessica walked in wearing one of my flannel shirts, holding a half-empty wine glass. "You like it?" she said, tugging at the shirt. "It gives me that cozy girlfriend vibe." I didn't answer. I just picked up one of the boxes and carried it to my room, the guest room, I mean. The room with the faulty heater, one dresser, and no closet space. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wood paneling I used to think was outdated. Now it was the only thing in that house that still belonged to me. That night, I tried to access the master bathroom. My knees were acting up. I just needed the tub. The guest bathroom had a stand-up shower with slippery tile. I knocked. Jessica opened the door halfway, holding a towel around herself. "Is there an emergency? I need to soak. My knees are swelling." Michael appeared behind her. "Dad, we talked about this. That bathroom's our space now. Just use the other one. The tub doesn't work. I've told you that twice. Maybe you can get someone to fix it," Jessica said, shrugging. "We're on a budget." I looked at Michael, my only child. He couldn't even hold my gaze. They closed the door. I stood there for a while, not knocking again, not begging, just standing there like a ghost nobody remembered to bury. I called Robert the next day from the public library. He didn't ask a lot of questions, just listened, took notes, told me he'd look into recent sales in the neighborhood and begin paperwork for a cash sale. I told him to move quiet. I don't want them tipped off until the papers are signed. He said, understood. That was a Tuesday. By Friday, Jessica was telling people she wanted to start a garden out back. She walked through my yard in heels, pointing at places she'd level out. Said she might tear up the old workshop. Said she wanted a hot tub. We don't care what the neighbors say, she laughed. We'll charm them. She already thought it was hers. Robert called the following week. He had a buyer. Full cash. No contingencies. The buyer didn't care who lived there now, just wanted clean paperwork and fast turnover. I told him to proceed. I made photocopies of everything, the deed, the signed agreement, the buyer's offer, and put it all in a manila envelope. I slid it under the mattress in the guest room right next to my father's old Bible, the one with the worn cover and all our family births and deaths written in the margins. I didn't talk much that week, just watched. Michael had started referring to the master bedroom as our suite. Jessica posted an Instagram story with the caption, "Home Sweet Home #newlywed life." They had no idea. I started packing quietly. Just the essentials, a few clothes, my late wife's jewelry box, a few photo frames, my reading glasses. Jessica asked why I was cleaning. I'm making room, I said. Feels like things are shifting. She laughed and said, good, because I want to turn that guest room into an office. That was the last straw. Not because they were thinking about redecorating, but because she thought she could build an empire in a house she stole from the man who made it a home. I didn't flinch. Robert called the next day to confirm the closing date. End of the month, he said. I'll bring the papers. I asked him to have the sheriff deliver the notice on a Sunday. You sure, he said. I want them dressed. I want her makeup on. I want him holding that damn coffee when it hits. He said nothing for a moment. Then he said, it's done. I hung up the phone and sat on the edge of the bed, the guest bed, the cold bed, the one they thought they'd forced me into. And I smiled because they locked me in a room, but I still held the key. The morning the papers were signed, I wore navy blue, not for sorrow. Lord knows that was long gone between me and my son. I wore it because I wanted to look like authority, the kind of authority that unsettles people who know they did you wrong. Robert arrived right on time like he always does. His footsteps echoed across my porch and down the hallway like Judgment Day. He had a folder under his arm, a serious expression on his face, and documents that would finally turn the tide. Are you ready? He asked, sitting across from me at the kitchen table I was once told not to use because Jessica had just cleaned it. I nodded. Cash buyer, quick sale. No inspection delays, title's clean, taxes are current, and since you're the sole deed holder, Michael and Jessica have no legal ground to stall. I want them served on Sunday, I said. Mid-morning. Robert didn't even blink. I've already contacted the sheriff. That night, I slept deeper than I had in weeks. No creaking doors, no whispers outside the guest room, no Jessica stomping around in my house slippers. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes when the decision's been made and all that's left is execution. Saturday came and went like a countdown. Michael was outside washing his car. I stood behind the curtain and watched him rinse down the hood like he didn't have eviction paperwork in the mail. Jessica was filming some nonsense on the porch, talking about manifesting abundance into their lives. The irony nearly knocked me over. I didn't speak a word to them. I just made coffee, watered the plants, and ironed my church shirt. Sunday morning came. I was sipping coffee when I heard the knock. Not a gentle tap. A firm, we have papers, knock. Robert and the deputy stood at the door, both dressed sharp. Michael opened it barefoot in sweatpants. His face dropped. Robert handed him the envelope and said, this property has been legally sold. You have 30 days to vacate. This notice has been filed with the county and a formal letter will follow. Jessica appeared behind him, still in her robe, hair in curlers, holding her phone. What is this? Michael opened the papers. His eyes scanned the first few lines and his face went ghost white. You sold the house, he said, spinning toward me. I took another sip. You can't do this, he snapped. We live here. No, I said calmly. You stayed here. This is our home. No, this is the home I let you into. And then you locked me out of my own bedroom and called it a favor. Jessica started stammering. You're throwing your own son out. After everything we've done for you. I set my coffee down. You boxed up my life, Jessica. You wore my wife's robe. You turned my master bedroom into your little kingdom and thought I'd die quietly in the guest room. We were building a family here. I stood. Then build it somewhere else. The deputy stepped forward. You have 30 days to vacate. After that, it becomes a matter for enforcement. Michael looked at me like a little boy who just realized his daddy wasn't going to bail him out this time. I can't believe you'd do this. I looked him in the eyes and for the first time in my life, I let the disappointment show. I believed in you, I said. That was my mistake. They didn't say much after that. Just stood there frozen. The neighbors arriving for their morning jogs didn't know whether to wave or run. Jessica slammed the door behind her. Michael followed. Robert and I stood on the lawn a minute longer, watching as curtains moved in windows, neighbors pretending not to be listening. He turned to me. You okay? I nodded. Better than I've been in years. We drove to the bank that afternoon and finalized the deposit. It was a large check, more than I expected, but I didn't smile at the number. The smile came when I handed Robert a folded piece of paper. What's this? The listing for a small 2-bedroom ranch across town. It's near the senior center. Walking distance to the park. He looked it over. You want to buy this in cash? I nodded. He was already pulling out his phone. I'll make the call. We closed within a week. The house wasn't big, but it was mine. Fresh paint, clean windows, a quiet porch with just enough space for 2 rocking chairs and a vegetable garden in the back. I didn't tell Michael where I moved. He tried calling once. Left a voicemail that said, "You went too far, Dad." I blocked him. Jessica sent a Facebook message saying I was toxic and ungrateful. I reported it as harassment. Tyler, my grandson, found me anyway. He showed up at the church one Sunday with his backpack and his serious brown eyes and hugged me for 5 straight minutes. Can I visit? He asked. Son, I said, you can stay as long as you want. We grilled burgers that night and played old country music on the radio. He helped me arrange my photo albums and told me about school. I gave him sweet tea. That evening, I stood on my new porch, coffee in hand, and watched the sun fall behind the hills. There was no ring light, no loud music, no stomping heels or slammed cabinet doors. Just peace, the kind you pay for, not with money, but with silence, restraint, and one well-timed signature. And it was worth every single ounce of betrayal. Because I didn't just sell the house. I sold the illusion that they ever controlled me. The thing about people like Michael and Jessica, they don't believe they can lose. Not really. They believe they're too clever, too charming, too connected. They smile through disrespect and call it boundaries. They manipulate with soft voices and say they're just trying to help. But when consequences come, when someone finally outsmarts them, they fall apart like wet tissue. After they got served the eviction notice, the energy shifted. The house grew quiet. Jessica stopped blasting music in the living room. No more girls' nights. No more cocktail glasses lined up on my kitchen counter like trophies. Just tension, raw, bitter tension. They stopped speaking to me completely. Fine by me. I had already moved on in every way but physically. Every morning I made coffee, read my paper, and looked out the window at my roses. They were blooming again, strong and red, like they had something to prove. Jessica started pacing more. She spent most of her time on speakerphone with her sisters, calling me crazy, vindictive, and spiteful. I heard her crying through the walls once. She was in the master bedroom, my bedroom. She said, "I don't want to go back to renting. I told you we should have pushed him to sign the house over." Pushed me. That's all I was to them. An obstacle in the way of their fake luxury lifestyle. Michael tried to fight it, of course. Sent Robert an email threatening to contest the sale. Robert replied with 3 words, "Too late." Legally. He didn't try again. Instead, he sulked. He walked around like a ghost, probably realizing for the first time that he was just a guest in the house he tried to steal. I didn't feel bad. Not after what they did. Not after what they made me feel. The real turning point came 2 weeks before the deadline. Michael knocked on my door, my guest room door. I didn't answer right away. I wanted him to feel that. When I did open it, he looked rough. Eyes bloodshot, hair unkempt, voice shaky. "Can we talk?" he said. I stepped out into the hallway and closed the door behind me. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he started. "We just needed some time to figure things out. We thought you'd understand. You locked me in the guest room, Michael." "I didn't lock you. You put a keypad on my bedroom door and acted like I should thank you for it." He sighed. "Jessica pushed that. Not me." I folded my arms. "And you let her. We're losing everything, Dad. You lost it the moment you forgot who this house belonged to." He didn't speak after that. Just looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. "Goodbye, Michael," I said. "You've got 2 more weeks." I closed the door. The night before the move-out date, I made one last meal in that kitchen. Fried chicken, mac and cheese, cornbread. I didn't do it for them. I did it for the house, for the memories, for the version of me that used to cook in silence while dreaming about respect. Jessica didn't come down. Michael passed through the kitchen and stared at the plate I made for myself. "You really going to eat like that while we pack our lives up?" "Yes," I said, "because I packed my life up 10 months ago and you didn't blink." He walked away. The next morning, a moving truck pulled up around 9 a.m. I watched them load it from my chair in the backyard. I didn't speak, didn't wave, just sat there with my coffee and my morning paper. They left around noon. No goodbyes, no apologies. The moment the truck was gone, I walked back into the house one last time. Every room echoed now. The walls looked stripped bare, like they had shed the noise, the tension, and the entitlement all at once. I ran my fingers along the hallway, touched the door frame where I used to measure Michael's height, touched the corner where my wife's piano used to sit, walked into the master bedroom, not theirs anymore, and stood there in silence. The house felt clean again. The next day, I met Robert at the title office. He handed me the final check and a new set of documents. "Congratulations," he said. "You're officially out." We shook hands. I didn't cry. I drove to my new house with the windows down and the radio playing old rock music. I parked, grabbed my things, and walked into a home that had no memories yet, just possibilities. That evening, Tyler came by. He ran in and hugged me so hard I nearly dropped the grocery bag. "I hate them," he whispered. "Don't," I said gently. "Just remember what not to become." We made dinner together. He played music from his phone while we worked around my small kitchen like 2 men who'd survived something unspeakable. After he left, I stood at the window and looked at the stars. There were no locks on my door that I didn't choose. No bedrooms I couldn't enter. No laughter that excluded me. I went to bed in a room that belonged only to me, under a roof paid for by peace. And I slept like a man who had taken back his name. Peace makes no sound. It doesn't stomp like Jessica's heels or whisper like Michael's excuses. It doesn't cry behind a locked door or linger like disrespect. Peace just sits with you, quiet, unshaken, earned. That's what my new home became. I didn't fill it with many things. Just what I needed. My grandfather's tools, a few photos, my Bible, a new coffee maker. I bought fresh bed sheets and burned cedar candles every night. It was the first place I'd lived where I didn't have to adjust myself for someone else's comfort. I walked freely. I breathed deeply. I healed. Tyler started visiting every weekend. His school grades were improving. His spirit, too. He'd always been a sharp boy, but living around Jessica's snide remarks and Michael's passive silence had dimmed him. Now he talked freely, laughed again. He helped me start a new garden in my backyard. We planted tomatoes, peppers, and one little rose bush in memory of his grandmother. "It's got to be a rose," he said. "It's her thing." One afternoon, he asked, "Are you going to see them again?" I knew what he meant. Michael and Jessica. "Not unless they come with honesty in their mouths," I said. He nodded, satisfied. I started doing things for myself again. Went back to church, volunteered once a week at the community center, helped organize a financial planning workshop for men over 60. I saw too many faces in that room that looked like mine. Men who'd been pushed out, written off, robbed by the very people they raised. They didn't cry during my talk. They nodded because they knew. They knew what it meant to be used up and silenced with guilt. They knew what it meant to be told, "You should be grateful we're even helping." They knew what it meant to sacrifice for children who turned into strangers with shared DNA. After my talk, one man shook my hand and said, "You gave me permission to protect what's mine." That hit deep because for too long, we're told to be humble, to give and give and give, and when there's nothing left, to pretend that's still love. But love without respect is just manipulation dressed up in family ties. A month after the sale, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. I opened it slowly, already guessing. It was from Michael. One page. His handwriting a little shaky. "Dad, I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I got caught up trying to prove something and I lost myself. Jessica and I split. She said something she can't take back. I know I let you down. I know I hurt you. I miss you. Michael." I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer next to my reading glasses. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. Some wounds don't bleed anymore, but they still ache in the cold. A week later, I received another envelope. This one from Robert. It was the final copy of the sale paperwork along with the closing balance. He'd also included something else, a brochure for a men's housing fund being launched at the community center. A sticky note attached read, "You inspired this. Want to help lead it?" I stared at the words for a long time. I thought about all the men like me. Men whose sons called them burdens, whose daughters-in-law saw them as background props. Men who weren't senile or fragile or bitter, just dismissed. Yes, I wanted to help. I called Robert and told him I'd matched the first 5 donations with funds from the sale of my house. He laughed softly. "George, you're building something bigger than a garden now." I smiled. That Sunday, Tyler and I grilled steaks. One for us, one for the church potluck, and one for the new neighbors who had moved into the house I sold. A young family with 2 small children. I walked up to the porch and knocked. The husband opened the door with a warm smile. "You must be Mr. Coleman. The agent said you were the previous owner." I nodded. "Just wanted to say welcome and let you know that house has been through a lot, but it still holds love in its walls." He accepted the steak with wide eyes. "That means a lot." I walked away with a lighter heart. I didn't look back. That night, as the sun dropped low, I stepped out onto my porch with a cup of coffee. The rose bush had its first bloom. I reached out and touched the petals. Soft, resilient, rooted, just like me. The first time I saw Michael again, it had been nearly 4 months since they moved out. He didn't call, didn't write again, just showed up at the church barbecue like nothing had happened. I was at the dessert table helping Tyler serve slices of apple pie. He saw him first. His face froze and he whispered, "Grandpa." I looked up and there he was. He looked older, not by years, but by the weight on his shoulders. His eyes were tired, his clothes neat but wrinkled like he got dressed without care. There was no Jessica beside him, just him standing in the churchyard with a plate in his hand and a heart too heavy for his chest. He stepped forward. "Dad," he said. "Can we talk?" I wiped my hands on a napkin and nodded toward the edge of the lot by the oak tree. We walked over slowly. My legs didn't move the way they used to, but I stood tall. "I've been thinking about everything," he said. "About what I did, what I let her do, and I don't even know how to apologize in a way that sounds like enough." "Then don't try," I said. He looked surprised. I was trying to give Jessica the life she wanted. She said you were too stubborn, that we needed control. I thought if I just handled things, you'd thank me. I blinked slow. "You handled things all right," I said. "You handled your father like a piece of furniture." He swallowed hard. "I deserved that." "You deserved worse," I said. "But I chose silence. I chose peace. You made your choices. I made mine." He looked down. "I lost the house. I lost her. I lost everything." "No," I said. "You lost me." He opened his mouth to respond, but I held up my hand. "You didn't just hurt me, Michael. You erased me. You watched me be diminished in the home I paid for. You locked me out of my own room. You stood by while she mocked me. You didn't stand up. And that's all I needed you to do. Stand up." Tears welled in his eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me." "Good," I said, calm as still water, "because I'm not there yet." We stood in silence for a long time. The sounds of the church crowd floated over from across the lot. Laughter, music, plates clinking. But over here, it was just the two of us, father and son, separated by decisions that couldn't be undone. "I started seeing a counselor," he said finally. "It's been helping." I nodded. "That's a start." He looked at me with so much shame I had to look away. "Is there anything I can do to earn it back?" "Not yet," I said. "Maybe not ever. But I'll tell you this, if you keep showing up in the right places in the right way without asking for applause, you might get close." He nodded slowly. Tyler walked over, plate in hand. He looked at me, then at him. "You okay, Grandpa?" I smiled. "I'm fine, son." Michael looked at him and said, "Hey, buddy." Tyler didn't answer, just handed me a cup of lemonade and stood beside me. He got the message. "I should go," Michael said. I didn't stop him. As he walked away, I felt something heavy lift. Not because he apologized, but because I'd already reclaimed what mattered. He could carry the guilt. I had carried enough. That night, Tyler and I sat on the porch under a string of lights we'd hung together. The tomatoes were thriving. The peppers were growing strong. The rose bush had 4 new buds. "Do you think he really means it?" he asked. "I think he regrets it," I said. "And sometimes that's all people have to offer." "Will you ever let him back in?" I sipped my coffee and looked out into the quiet night. I let go of the house, the fight, the anger. "But my peace," I said. "That has to be earned." He nodded. I reached into my shirt pocket and pulled out a key, one that opened the door to the house he now called his second home. "This is for you," I said. His eyes widened. "Grandpa. I want you to always have a place that's yours," I said. "No matter who tells you otherwise." He took the key and held it tight like it meant the world. Because it did. Not just the metal, not just the door, the message. You are not disposable. You are not invisible. You will not be pushed into the guest room of your own life. I patted his shoulder, leaned back in my chair, and looked at the stars. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like someone trying to survive. I felt like a man who had already won. The months that followed brought a kind of peace I hadn't known was possible. My small house became a sanctuary, not just for me, but for other men who found themselves in similar situations. Word had gotten around about what I'd done, and slowly, quietly, men started reaching out. There was Frank, whose daughter had moved him to the basement, for his own safety, while she took over his upstairs. There was David, whose son had convinced him to sign over power of attorney and then cleaned out his savings. There was William, whose family had him declared incompetent so they could sell his farm. We met every Thursday evening in my living room. We called it coffee and conversation, but it was really therapy for men who'd been taught that asking for help was weakness. "The thing is," Frank said one evening, "I raised her better than this. I taught her right from wrong." "You did," I told him. "But somewhere along the way, she chose wrong anyway. That's not your failure. That's hers." Tyler started helping with these meetings. He'd serve coffee, listen to stories, and sometimes just sit quietly while grown men cried about children who'd forgotten how to love without taking. One evening, after everyone had left, Tyler asked me, "Do you think Dad will ever figure it out?" I was washing coffee cups in my small kitchen sink. "I think he's trying," I said. "But figuring it out and earning forgiveness are two different things." "What's the difference?" I dried my hands and turned to him. "Figuring it out is about understanding what you did wrong. Earning forgiveness is about proving you've changed. The first takes a day. The second takes years." He nodded like he understood. Michael had been showing up more often, not to my house, but to places where he knew I'd be. Church, the grocery store, Tyler's baseball games. He never approached me directly, just made sure I saw him. Made sure I knew he was trying. It was a start, but it wasn't enough. One Saturday morning, I was working in my garden when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Dad?" I turned around. Michael stood at my gate, holding a small toolbox and wearing work clothes. "Tyler mentioned your fence post was loose," he said. I thought maybe I could fix it. If that's okay." I looked at him for a long moment. He looked different somehow. Humbler. The arrogance that had clung to him like cologne was gone. "It's the corner post," I said, pointing. "Been wobbling for weeks." He nodded and got to work. I went back to my tomatoes, but I watched him out of the corner of my eye. He worked methodically, quietly, the way I'd taught him when he was young. No complaints, no shortcuts. When he was done, he gathered his tools and started to leave. Then he stopped. "Dad, I know I don't deserve to ask this, but would you be willing to have coffee sometime? Just to talk?" I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the boy I'd taught to swing a hammer, the teenager I'd helped with homework, the young man I'd been so proud of. But I also saw the man who'd locked me out of my own bedroom. "Not yet," I said. "But keep fixing things. Keep showing up. And maybe someday." He nodded and left without another word. That evening, Tyler asked me how I felt about seeing his father. "Confused," I said honestly. "Part of me wants to forgive him. Part of me wants to protect myself from being hurt again." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to wait," I said. "And watch. And let his actions tell me who he really is now." 3 months later, Michael showed up again. This time with a different request. "There's a man at my apartment complex," he said. "His name is Mr. Peterson. His daughter put him in assisted living and sold his house. He's talking about ending it all." I felt something stir in my chest. "What do you want me to do?" "I thought maybe you could talk to him. You understand what he's going through. Why do you care?" I asked. Michael looked down at his hands. "Because I'm starting to understand what I put you through. And I can't fix what I did to you, but maybe I can help someone else." The next day, I visited Mr. Peterson. He was a thin man with sad eyes, sitting alone in a sterile room that smelled like disinfectant and defeat. "Your son sent me," I said, sitting down across from him. He laughed bitterly. "Which one? The one who took my house or the one who took my savings?" "The one who's learning that actions have consequences." We talked for 2 hours. By the end, Mr. Peterson was crying, not from sadness, but from relief. Relief that someone understood. Relief that he wasn't crazy or ungrateful or bitter. "You're not the first man to go through this," I told him. "And you won't be the last. But you're not alone." I invited him to our Thursday meetings. He came the next week, and the week after that. Slowly, he started to heal. Michael had given me a gift without realizing it, the chance to turn my pain into purpose, my experience into wisdom. 6 months later, our little Thursday group had grown into something bigger. We'd helped 12 men escape financial abuse. We'd connected 14 men with legal aid. We'd prevented 3 suicides. The local newspaper wrote an article about us. They called us the Brotherhood of Second Chances. I laughed when I read it, but Tyler said it was perfect. "You're giving men their dignity back, Grandpa. Just like you got yours back." 1 year after I sold the house, Michael appeared at my door again. This time, he wasn't carrying tools or asking for favors. He was just standing there, looking nervous. "I've been going to counseling for 8 months, he said. "I've been volunteering at the senior center for 6 months. I've been trying to become the man you raised me to be." I listened without interrupting. "I don't expect forgiveness," he continued. "I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I took from you. Not just a bedroom or respect, I took your sense of safety in your own home. I made you feel unwanted in the place where you should have felt most loved." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." For the first time in over a year, I saw my son clearly. Not the entitled man who'd locked me out, but the broken man who was trying to find his way back to decency. "Would you like some coffee?" I asked. He nodded, tears in his eyes. We sat on my porch for 2 hours. We didn't talk about the house or Jessica or what had been lost. We talked about Tyler's grades, about the garden, about the small things that make up a life. When he left, I didn't invite him back. But I didn't tell him to stay away either. Progress, I'd learned, was measured in small steps. Tyler graduated high school that spring with honors. At the ceremony, I sat in the front row, proud as any grandfather could be. Michael sat 3 rows back, alone but present. After the ceremony, Tyler ran to me first. "Did you see, Grandpa? I gave you a shout-out in my speech." I had heard it. He'd thanked me for showing him what integrity looks like, even when it costs you everything. Later, as we celebrated at my house, Tyler pulled me aside. "Dad asked if he could come to dinner sometime. With both of us." I looked at my grandson, this young man who'd become my anchor in the storm, and realized he was asking for something I hadn't been ready to give. "What do you think?" I asked him. "I think people can change," he said. "And I think you've changed too. You're not the same man who got pushed around. You're stronger now. You don't have to protect yourself the same way." He was right. The man who'd been locked in the guest room was gone. In his place was someone who knew his worth, who'd built boundaries from steel instead of hope. One dinner, I said. We'll see how it goes. That dinner happened on a Sunday in late summer. Michael brought flowers, not expensive ones, just simple daisies from the grocery store. We ate on my porch as the sun set behind the hills. It wasn't magical. It wasn't healing. It was just 3 generations of men trying to figure out how to be family again. Michael talked about his new job, about the counseling, about the mistakes he was still learning from. He didn't make excuses or ask for sympathy. He just shared where he was. When he left, he shook my hand. Thank you for giving me a chance. Thank Tyler, I said. This was his idea. He nodded. I will. As I watched him drive away, I realized something had shifted. Not forgiveness, not yet, but possibility. The possibility that redemption was real, that people could change, that families could heal even after they'd been broken. Tyler stayed the night, and we sat on the porch talking until late. How do you feel? He asked. Cautious, I said. But hopeful. Think you'll let him come back? If he keeps earning it, I said. One dinner at a time. That winter, our Thursday meetings moved to the community center. We'd outgrown my living room. 23 men now came regularly, sharing stories, finding strength, planning strategies. Michael started attending. Not as my son, but as a man who needed to understand the damage he'd caused. He listened to other men's stories, and I watched him recognize himself in their pain. One evening, after everyone had left, he helped me stack chairs. I used to think you were just being stubborn, he said. I didn't understand that you were fighting for your dignity. I wasn't fighting at all, I said. I was just refusing to disappear. He nodded. I'm learning the difference. By spring, something remarkable had happened. The local government had allocated funding for elder advocacy based on our work. We'd become a model for other communities. I was invited to speak at conferences, to share my story with policymakers and social workers. But the real victory wasn't public recognition. It was personal peace. I'd taken back more than my house. I'd taken back my sense of self-worth, my right to respect, my belief that I mattered. On the 2nd anniversary of selling the house, Tyler organized a party. Not to celebrate the sale, but to celebrate what came after. The men from our group came, along with their families. Michael came too, with a card he'd written himself. To the man who taught me that love without respect isn't love at all. Thank you for never giving up on the possibility that I could be better. I love you, Dad. I read it twice before putting it in my pocket. That evening, as the last guests left, Tyler and I sat on the porch. The rose bush, now 3 years old, was covered in blooms. Any regrets? He asked. I thought about it seriously. I regret that it took so long for your father to understand what he was doing. I regret that I had to lose my home to save my dignity. But I don't regret fighting back. What would you tell other men going through this? I'd tell them that they're not too old to start over. They're not too weak to fight back. And they're definitely not too unimportant to matter. Tyler smiled. Think Dad's really changed? I looked at the key he still wore on a chain around his neck, the key to my house, to his sanctuary, to his sense of security. I think he's trying, I said. And for now, that's enough. As the stars came out, I thought about all the men who'd sat on this porch, all the stories that had been shared, all the healing that had happened. I thought about the house I'd lost and the home I'd gained. I thought about the son who'd betrayed me and the grandson who'd saved me. I thought about the man I'd been, quiet, accommodating, disappearing, and the man I'd become, strong, purposeful, unshakable. The guest room had been their trap, but it became my launching pad. They'd tried to make me smaller, but I'd grown larger. They'd tried to erase me, but I'd written my name in permanent ink across the sky. I am George Coleman. I am 74 years old. I sold my house to save my soul, and it was the best deal I ever made. I don't live in the past anymore. I live in the present I created, surrounded by the family I chose, protected by the boundaries I built, sustained by the respect I demanded. And every morning when I wake up in my own bed, in my own room, in my own house, I remember. Some things are worth fighting for. Dignity is one of them. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply refusing to disappear.